Andy Allen, you are actually an apprentice electrician.
Yes.
How did you even think about auditioning for MasterChef?
I don't want to sound like a complete fraud, right?
Yeah.
My mate dared me $500. To get on the show, you do need a handful of dishes. I knew the basics.
It was interesting for you because you won MasterChef and then did, all the bits and pieces that come with someone who wins and press. But it then started to dry up.
After the 8 months, I remember sitting in my bedroom in Coogee. I love the NBA. And I remember just watching the whole week of the NBA playoffs. I was like, you have not left your room for a week. All this stuff has just dried up.
Was it hard for you to see all the stuff with George going on?
Definitely. He just faced up to it and he copped so much for that.
In 2023, Jock passed away. How was navigating the grief that went with that so publicly as well as privately?
That was the hardest thing.
When you become a public figure, it can be harsh at times.
When the chips are down and you are hurting in a way, people just don't really have any kind of concern.
And I wondered for you, do you think that kids is something that you would think about doing in the near future?
I have a fear of
Andy Allen, people know you from MasterChef, but it wasn't always like that. You are actually an apprentice electrician in Newcastle.
Yep, Newey of all places.
How's
Grew up
that?
in Maitland.
Yeah.
Look, my life was, I think, very normal, and I think a lot of people would be able to relate to it. Both my parents were school teachers. Grew up in a country town, played a lot of sport. School wasn't really my thing. Didn't know what I was going to do, as in a career-wise. But my family was really, we were tight because mum and dad were school teachers. It really did, bring us together, because the best thing about being a school teacher is you get holidays. And so having those family holidays when we were young was just priceless, and you look back at them now and you're just like, they were some of the best years of my life.
What sort of stuff did you do?
We had we had the tent first of all at Fingal Bay Caravan Park, and then the tent turned into a caravan, and then the caravan turned into an on-site caravan. And then mum and dad bit the bullet and bought a house up there, which they now live in. So, but always getting out fishing and being outdoors and surfing and doing all the things when you're, from the age of 9 through to 17 years old. Sometimes I wish I could just go back there for a week.
And so tell me, obviously you cook, but where did that come into the picture? Because, being a Sparky and then going and winning MasterChef are two very different things.
For me, I just cooked for my family and my friends. It was nothing special. I didn't come from a line of, my mum and my nonna and, everyone teaching me, the things that they'd passed down. Unfortunately, mum can't cook. Love you, mum, but you can't cook, and she knows that. She's happy to admit that. And then dad had probably a catalogue of 5 dishes that were, very mundane, your classics like spaghetti bolognese, this terrible green chicken curry that he cooked, where you'd pick the bean up and it just flopped to the ground because it was so grey and overcooked. So we lived a very simple life, and so I just kind of started seeing people on TV cooking and was a bit interested in that. And, I feel like Jamie Oliver, at that time, he really wanted to appeal to males. And it is so cliche, but I was like, whoa, who's this guy? Yeah. What's going on there? I've actually never told him this either. But he was probably what got me inspired into there has to be more out there than these other 5 boring dishes that my old man's cooking. But then probably when I went on MasterChef, I was 23 years old. I was
how did you even think about auditioning for that? Because there's a big leap. Electrician, MasterChef, to cook a couple of dishes and then go, I'm going to try out for a reality TV show that is all based on cooking.
I don't want to sound like a complete fraud, right?
Yeah.
Because hopefully I'm not. But my mate dared me $500. He was like, you're pretty good at this. Go on it, $500. There it is. And I was a struggling 4th-year apprentice. I was like, I will take your money. And at that point, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. Yeah. And I honestly, I didn't really think that I'd be a chance on the show either. But I knew the basics, the absolute basics. And to get on the show, you do need a handful of dishes, and I was probably just lucky that my handful of dishes, I knew that the basics to those. And
what'd you make?
Oh, it was a disaster. For me, it was a disaster.
That was a disaster.
No, how it happened was a bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
So I got the call to come down, and they said, "Look, we'll send you an email with all the details." And I remember skim reading the email, and it said, "Bring a cold dish." And so I was like, okay, amazing. I'll cook at that point, I Googled a ceviche recipe and kind of got my head around put my own little touch on it. And I was like, okay, we'll go down, we'll get some scallops from the fish market. I had I was going to do a little mango salsa with it. Had the whole mangoes, chili, limes, etc. in my esky. Rock up to the auditions, and you get put in this group of 10 because they see 10 people at a time. And naturally, everyone starts to ask each other what they cooked. And I'm lucky that it started to my right and it went around the table. And I was the last person that would have been asked. And by about number 6, when they were like, oh, I did my red velvet cupcakes or I did this blueberry cheesecake, I was like, you're meant to cook your dish. You're meant to bring it. Yeah. And so I just wheeled back in my chair and went straight up to the lady marking off the names. I was like, I got a problem. I've got all of my ingredients whole, ready to go to make this dish. And she was like, well, we can't really do much.
Yeah.
We're on a pretty strict schedule here. And she was like, give me 5 minutes. I'll go talk to the producers and see what we can do. And anyway, she came back and said, look, you would have got 5 minutes to plate your dish. We're going to give you 10 minutes. So whatever you can do in 10 minutes, that's what we'll taste. And the dish turned out okay, but I think it worked out in my favor because there was so much pressure in that situation. I was only given 10 minutes. I was cutting everything on my serving plate. It should have been a disaster, but it kind of worked out. And I think that they kind of saw that I'd really done a MasterChef challenge then and there, and I dealt with it. And so that was
Did they film that?
No, this is all behind the scenes. Yeah. It was down at a TAFE in Sydney. But I feel like the producers were like, he should have failed, and he didn't. And yes, his dish probably wasn't amazing, but it was the way that he dealt with the pressure, that was legit, and that's what we need on the show.
It's so interesting, though. I wonder, what if you just bought a cake and go, yeah, I'll cook this. This is an amazing chocolate.
Yeah, I think they'd kind of see through that because at the end of the day, you're still a home cook at that stage. And a lot of the food in the early days, there's 2,000 odd people that apply.
Yeah.
And then they whittle that down. I think you kind of see through the board cake.
So,
I would hope that I could tell a beautiful bought cake from Beatrix Bakes or something like that to a home cooked cake.
Yeah. I mean, you'd hope so, but I reckon you never know.
Look at me. I thought I was the fraud, and now you're telling me how to bring it.
Someone could get someone else to cook this stuff.
True.
Because a lot of people go on reality TV now to be famous.
Yeah.
Not just because they're good at what they do, right? We've seen that a lot. I think in the early days, people actually went on without the knowledge because reality TV was a new medium.
Yeah.
But now it's more I want to be famous.
Yeah.
So you could get randoms to cook your dishes and then
you get found out though. That's the thing. Yeah. You can't get randoms to cook all your dishes when you're actually on the show.
True.
That's when
that's true.
And I think for me, that was my main goal. Just don't make an idiot of yourself on national TV. And so it was survival for me, but it was also the most amazing learning experience ever because you shoot for 6 months. Everyone's like, oh, how'd you learn so much? You're in that house. Well, back in 2012, we lived in a house with all of the other contestants.
Yeah.
We went from the house to the studio, back to the house. And that was it for 6 months. And so
you're in a shared house.
Shared house with 23 other humans.
Oh, wow.
As a 23-year-old male who I immediately was like, God, I need to grow up here. I can't be the larrikin from Maitland. I need to somewhat have my head screwed on.
Do you spend a lot of time not filming in the house with the people?
Yeah. How
was that?
It was good. It was challenging. I think it was so much more. I always look at other people though. It was so much more challenging for them. They had kids, they had businesses, mortgages. Like I was kind of the perfect contestant. 23-year-old, single, didn't love his job, didn't have kids, like didn't have mortgages. I was getting like an allowance, which wasn't much, and I was like, it was the most money I'd ever saved in my life because you just had nowhere to spend it. So
they give everyone an allowance, obviously, because they're taking 6 months off work.
Correct.
To be able to kind of survive, I suppose. Then, 23 people, that must have been a massive house.
Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, it was an amazing house, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and that's in Melbourne.
That was in Sydney back then. So the first
then,
4 seasons were filmed in Sydney and then we moved to Melbourne after that.
But they don't do the house thing anymore.
No, it's now changed. Yeah, they just have them in apartments with kitchenettes and kitchens and things like that.
And you're not allowed to see family in that time?
So that was what I was getting at. Like for people with kids, it was so hard because depending on the age bracket of kids, they could go home and see them. You know, if you had a 1 to 4-year-old, you could go back every 2 weeks. If you had a 4-year-old, and it went up. But I just saw these people like go back, like miss their loved ones so much. And I did too, don't get me wrong. I miss my friends and my family, but
it's different.
It's different with kids.
Yeah.
You go back and they just rekindle that love and everything that they'd wanted and yearned for that period of time. They get it and then it's taken off them again. And then they go back to the house and you would just see it. And more often than not, they would go home soon after that because it was just so hard mentally.
It's hard for the mums and the dads, but I think also especially the mums for their kids too would be so hard to be away from them for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
That's quite heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah, massively, massively.
How did you help those people? Were you, a shoulder to cry on for many of them?
Yeah, I think for me at the age of 23, like I didn't really get it then. But now, like, you process it. I've done a lot of kind of processing, from the age of, 32 onwards. I just think I got to that age where I was like, hang on, you've actually done half okay. How did this happen? Like something must have led to you, being okay at the things that you've done. But at that time, I just don't think I was like together enough to really understand what they were going through. And, sure, I was always trying to be friendly and helpful and have a bit of a laugh and make light of any situation that I possibly could through humor, but I just didn't get it.
And when you do reflect, you said that you have, what do you see?
That's a bloody good question. I see someone who I've always tried to make the most of the opportunity. I've always kind of had like things that I'd love to like make every opportunity a learning opportunity. No matter where I'm sitting here with you, if I'm in a kitchen, if I'm anywhere, I just love that kind of, you can get gifted little nuggets and you don't know where they're going to come from. But if you can try and pull together those nuggets from all facets of life, then you can get a pretty big bag. So, yeah, that's been one thing that I've kind of always lived my life by. But I've always tried to work really hard. I've always tried to be quite relatable, quite honest and open. I don't really... all of the kind of success stuff doesn't really, it matters. Like I love that I've been able to work really hard and get something from it. But now I feel my emotions are getting more dragged towards like being a better husband, being a better son, being a better friend. And it does get difficult because the more success I get, the less time that there is. And, I don't have kids yet, so I'm like, trying to make the most of everything, but yet I really want to kind of listen to my thoughts and my feelings. So, yeah, it's still a ride.
You won MasterChef, which was amazing.
Yeah.
How was that?
It definitely changed my life. I never would have, as you can probably gather, I didn't expect that would happen. I went through that 6 months of filming and didn't really know what I was in for. I kind of liked it that way because it was just this unknown of an adventure. But it was, like the getting recognised and people, that was all so new, like obviously. But I've always felt like I hope that I would deal with that. I've dealt with that okay. Like I think for me, like I just felt like I got heaps more friends, like it was that simple. Back then, I feel like you notice it when you're in the public eye when there's the negative things that happen. Like, like when my friend Jock passed away, he having people come up into the street and ask me really personal questions. That's when I was like, that's the negativity of this fame thing. That's the negative side. And I've been so lucky never to really have that. And just for people to think that they can like ask you anything that they probably wouldn't ask, they'd struggle to ask their best friend, but they just have no filter with you because that's how they perceive that. So, yeah.
I wonder, that's an interesting thing because there is something when you then become a public figure, like for anyone that becomes a public figure, it can be harsh at times, but it also kind of comes with the territory.
Yep.
Yep. How have you managed that?
I think I've always lent in. Like I've always been like MasterChef has given me everything that my life really has. And I've always thanked that process, and part of that process is what happens after it. And so I've always lent in and given people their time that they need and they want. But yeah, the hard ones are like when the chips are down and you are hurting in a way and people just don't really have any kind of concern for that, or they do. And a majority of people do. Don't get me wrong. The majority of people were so amazing, but the small minority were like, it was that's something that I've learned a lot from. Yeah.
It was interesting for you because you won MasterChef and then did, all the bits and pieces that come with someone who wins and press and, you can tell us about the other things you did. But it then started to dry up. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, it was so interesting. Like, I had no idea what that process would be like. And back in those days, you were assigned a manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so...
Who was your manager?
One Management in Sydney, and that was kind of great for me because, like, I wouldn't have known what to do as a 23-year-old bloke. Like, but at least I was put in... The jobs that I was doing were so random. Like, cooking demos. I released a cookbook. Like, kind of a very different breadth of things that I did.
Did you like that?
I liked it because some of them a lot of them I didn't like. So that was like, cool, tick that off the list. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
It's
Don't
good
do that.
learning.
Yeah.
I find that in my work too, where I'm like, we'll never do that again.
Yes. Yeah. And so I learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah. Or I love that. That is something I'm good at and is like bringing me joy.
For sure.
Let's find more of that.
For sure. And it had nothing to do with the management because I didn't even know myself at that time. I didn't know. I didn't have goals. I just was like, what has just happened? So then after the 8 months, I remember sitting in my bedroom in Coogee, and I'd watched, I love the NBA, and I remember just watching like the whole week of the NBA playoffs. And I was like, you have not left your room for a week. Like all this stuff has just dried up. Is this where you go back and continue being a Sparky? Like, there's another winner, you're old news, like what happens now? And I had a pretty real kind of chat with myself, and I really wanted to continue learning how to cook because I just started this YouTube channel, wasn't doing like, it was just three mates just trying something. And I was like, if I'm going to teach people how to cook, I want to learn how to cook because yes, you want a reality TV show, but there's like actual ways of cooking food. And so I just knocked on the Three Blue Ducks door, and they were guest chefs on season 4. So it had like a little bit to do with them. They're obviously kicking goals in their little cafe in Bronte at the time, little 50-seater. And Mark kind of came up to me when after I'd finished the show, all the guest chefs kind of come back for the finale in those days. And he said, look, when you're done with all the riffraff, come and see me if you want to learn how to cook. And so I just did. I did 2 weeks work experience. And I didn't go into that thinking that that's what my job was going to be and that's where the path that I was going to go down. But I just loved it. I loved everything about that kitchen. I loved the camaraderie. I loved like the kind of similarities of sport that it had, playing a lot of sport growing up. For me, the kitchen was like playing sport every day. You'd prep for however many hours, which was, that was your training, and then you'd go into the game, which was service every night. And for me, I was like, I get that thrill every day that I do this. This is amazing. Bloody hard work, but amazing. And then I just worked really hard at that. I took a full-time chef role.
Really?
Yeah, in the kitchen in Bronte. And that's all I was doing, among other, bits and pieces that were kind of coming my way. But for me, my main thing was that 5 days a week in that kitchen, just doing the best I could. And then the boys were, they kind of noticed that, I was really hungry. I really wanted to make a go of this. And then they took the biggest gamble ever, and in my view, and asked me if I'd open a restaurant with them, Three Blue Ducks in Rosebery, and that was a risk. Like I just didn't. I was sitting there thinking, do I have what it takes to be a head chef of this new restaurant? Bronte was a 50-seater cafe. This is a 230-seater warehouse. The Three Blue Ducks is the only kitchen that I've ever worked in, so I don't know anything else. And I had those fears, and then I just worked my absolute ass off to make that a success, and that was not easy at all. There was a lot of nights when there were empty seats, and
really,
it was really, really, really hard.
Where's Rosebery?
It's in Sydney. Yeah, kind of like in between near Alexandria. It's like in between the airport and the city.
Yeah.
And that was really.
How's it going now?
Oh, epic! Yeah, amazing.
What changed?
It had changed hands a couple of times before we were in there. It used to be this amazing place called Kitchen by Mike. And then the other two tenants after it weren't very successful. And I think it was just a matter of like people not knowing we were there. The area has changed a lot since then, and it was just hard. Yeah, it was just really hard.
It's an interesting thing. I've been to Three Blue Ducks in Byron a lot of times.
Yep.
But being in the restaurant game in this economic climate can either make you or break you, right? So I wonder, from your experience, what makes you?
It's something, I think for us, there's a level of trust that people have that we've been doing business for 15 years in the hospitality industry. So we've had a lot of time to gain trust. And I'm not saying that we're perfect, because we always strive to do things better and work hard at it. I kind of laughed before because my wife is she's in brand marketing, and so she's doing this big research piece on our strategy, and we've run a business really off very limited data over the last 15 years. So she's come into this place where she normally does a lot of corporate marketing. She's come into us, and it's just taken her a lot longer to kind of do a lot of data digging and seeing what we're at, and it's been really interesting to get some data. But I think, for me, I feel like people trust Three Blue Ducks. I feel like we've really tried hard to have a big community aspect wherever we are, whether that be in, out at Urban Surf, in Tullamarine, in Byron, in Bronte. We always really try to connect with our community, and I feel like that's really strong if people want to survive through the tough times. Whether you call them regulars or whether you want to be part of that community, you really need that.
I wonder, you were obviously one MasterChef when it was Matt, George and Gary.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm just thinking now, I many years ago used to be a producer, and the first show that I ever produced was for Fox FM. It was like the really early days of MasterChef.
Yeah.
And it was like Matt Preston was the host.
Right.
And so he would come in every week and I would produce this show, and then the other boys would come in and we'd have other people that were contestants, and God, I'd forgot about that. That was so long ago. So, it was great to get to know the guys. Did you know them well?
Before I was a contestant?
No, like after the whole process of like being there for 6 months.
Yeah,
did you, like,
definitely. I mean,
with them?
100%. Definitely. I still thank them so much for what I've got, because I'm pretty real without them and without their buy-in and without them kind of nurturing me throughout that 6-month period and after. I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. And so I definitely. That was really so crazy when that period happened where it was announced that they weren't going to do the show again. And I remember I was over in Italy, and I remember seeing like snippets of the news, and I was like, bloody hell, someone's going to be lucky getting that new role. Like, I just can't see anyone else in that role other than those three, because they'd just done it for so long. They were synonymous with the brand. And I was like, wow. Someone's going to have to work really hard to make that a success without those three. And and then I literally got a call when I was over on that same European trip saying, would you want to come in and have a crack at maybe being the next judge? And I was like, what? Like, this is so weird. I was like, a week ago, I was like, yeah. And it happened really quickly. Like, I'm not talking
So you didn't have to audition or anything?
No.
They just gave it to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And like the funny thing was, not the funny thing, but the crazy thing was, just goes to show you how good the producers are and how good their eye is. Jock, Melissa and myself, who were obviously the first three after Matt, George and Gary, we had never been in the same room together.
Really?
Nah. So there was no like, we like we like the chemistry between those two, or those three. It was like full three fresh faces. And like, it was amazing because they said, we don't want another Matt, George and Gary. So we want this new kind of energy and this new kind of period for MasterChef to just be run by people who are not them. We want it as different as we possibly can. Because
so different.
We don't want to try and fake it that they're not there anymore. Like, they did the show, absolute wonders. It wouldn't be where it was today without them, but we don't want you to be them. And it was the best thing for me.
I think that's good.
Huge, huge.
I wonder though, obviously Matt, George and Gary were like synonymous with that brand, right?
Yeah.
Was it hard for you to see all the stuff with George going on?
Definitely, yeah. It was...
He's a nice guy.
He's a lovely guy. And I just looked at it from my lens. Like, I have restaurants. We have 200-odd staff, like a lot of staff, a lot of moving parts to the business. Combine that with like filming, everything else that you do. I have complete trust in what my team is doing. And yes, I know that we're doing everything kosher, but like, there's also that level of trust that I have.
Of course. So
to see him go through that and being like, he just took it on the chin and he just took it like, and I'm not saying that he should have done it differently, but I'm just saying like, he just faced up to it and he copped so much for that. And
I feel like also the media made out like it was him.
Mm.
They didn't
For
take
sure.
away the fact
was like he
that
was doing the books.
Yes, exactly. And I think most people who read the publications would assume that.
Yeah.
And I actually think I did up until someone told me years ago the reality of the situation. I was like, oh no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they kind of worded it in a way exactly like he was the one giving the payout every week to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And all George was probably guilty of was, not asking a question if something didn't add up on the P&L. But yeah, that was, I mean, it's hard to watch anyone go through that. Like that is, like I said before, the bad side of being in the media. Your problems are just there for everyone to have a swing at. And
so you become one of the hosts of MasterChef, one of the judges, I should say. How's that experience?
It's been some of the best times of my life and then some of the hardest times of my life. Like I think, the best times were the first series in 2020. We were written off,
Really?
100%. We were it is going to fail. These three can't do it. There's no chance that this is going to be a success. Here is the fall from grace of MasterChef. It's going to happen.
Is that what the papers were saying?
Yeah. And I think,
what was their reasoning for it?
I just think that, Matt, George and Gary were that brand.
Yeah.
They were the show.
They were the show.
And nothing to do with I'm taking nothing away from them, but what we realise is that the show is bigger than any three people or any four people that stand at the front.
Yeah,
it really is about the positive effect that it can have on everyday people.
It's inspired so many people to cook.
That
within itself. I mean, cooking is the most beautiful thing.
Yeah,
and then to have little kids cooking. And, I would rather expose my children to MasterChef than get them to sit and watch the Kardashians.
Yeah.
And I would say that 99.9% of people would, right?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And that's why Jock, Mel and myself, why we were successful. It's why we're 17 seasons deep. It's because the show is about uplifting people and, not doing the reverse. And there's plenty of bloody shows out there that do that. So we've always kind of, put a stake in the ground and said, that's what we do. We don't do anything else. It's not about the bitchiness. It's not about trying to bring people down. It's trying to get the best out of each individual when they walk through those doors so they can try and, live out their dream.
And that must, can you think back to times where you've been a judge and you've just felt so much joy for doing the job that you're doing?
All the time. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Especially because there is such a long filming process, like the 6 months. You really get to build relationships, and you really get to have that sense of mentorship. It's not a little hi, you're in, and then you're out. You really connect with these people, and to see the effect that you can have on them. That's what makes me really proud. And then to see people go out into the industry and really do achieve their dreams that they set out to do before they walked into the kitchen. I hold that in such high regard as my role, that seeing it happen, it makes me really happy. And yeah, for me, it's not a TV show, it's a cooking competition, because that's first and foremost what it is. And I've always kind of made sure that that's how I treat it, and that's what people think that it is when they walk through the doors, because it is a real cooking competition. Yes, there are a bazillion cameras on set, and yes, we might say a couple of lines at the start to introduce the challenge, and yes, there is some music in the background that might dramatise a few little bits and pieces, but at the core of when people are in that kitchen, it's a cooking competition.
You must see people under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be hard.
It is. It is. And I suppose for me, that's the thing where being an ex-contestant, the mentorship part, I really hope that I can kind of see it happening because I've been there. And so seeing people go through that pressure, and 99% of the time, the person that wins MasterChef is not the best cook. They're the best. They deal with the pressure best.
It's all about the mind.
It is, and you sound like me, because I literally say that it is about the mindset.
I'm a mindset coach.
You will find that mindset that you need to get into, and it's going to be different for every single one of you. Find that mindset that you need to get into to cook well. It's
also making sure your emotions don't get the better of you in such heated situations. Yeah. I have my personal trainer's also an amazing CrossFitter, and they had the games.
Yeah.
They had to go to Queensland to try out for something.
Yeah.
And she's so good, but only 2.5 years in, so very early into her CrossFitting career.
Yeah.
And I said to her, you know everything, you train harder than anyone. It's all about your mind now. You control your mind and you will do well.
Yeah.
Because the pressure is where you see people crumble.
Definitely.
And you would see it the whole time.
All the time. And you don't love that, like, because you were essentially putting the
Yeah.
pressure on with these challenges. But pressure is what, sorts so many different people out. And it is just who deals with the pressure the best. There are those little moments, and it's like in everything.
How did you deal with it at the time? Do you remember?
Yeah, for me, I think I hate to go back to the whole sport thing, but I played a reasonably high level of basketball.
Yeah.
And I think just at the end of the day, I just was like, this is food. Like, we're not doing brain surgery here. Like, we're cooking a plate of food. And for me, I think that kind of naive nature of being a 23-year-old, like, not really. I understood the situation, but it wasn't like the be all and end all for me. Because of what.
That's a big thing. Yeah.
Huge. Like, a lot of people, that was their life. That was their opportunity. That was their moment. Whereas there's that level of pressure that I think a lot of people put on themselves, and because they were having that moment. But because I was like, I really, I didn't put any pressure on myself because I didn't see myself as a great cook, first and foremost. I didn't have
And you were just doing the dare.
Yeah,
the
exactly. I'm living the
dare.
dare. Yeah. So that's, maybe I should just say, live the dare, guys. Live the dare.
I think it's kind of, I suppose, taking it seriously enough, but also not too seriously.
Yeah. There's such a fine line.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with being in that cook as well. I nearly went home. It was a really amazing learning experience that I had. Top 12. Marco Pierre White was in the house. I didn't even know who that was because I just didn't know much about food at that stage. He comes in like no joke. There's like smoke and everything happening at the doors. He comes in, like, bursts through the doors, like twirling a chef's knife on his finger, like with bandana on and stuff.
Is there dramatic music?
Well, not on in the kitchen, but
sure
it would have been
TV,
overlaid
yeah.
for sure. And I was like, everyone's losing their mind.
Yeah.
I was like, who is this guy?
What's this joker they've brought in?
And it was like a 2-round challenge. And I remember like saying to myself, you have to zone in. Like, this guy must be legit. Like, he's got to be real special. Yeah. No one twirls a knife on their finger. And so I was like, lock in, cook a good dish, get out in round 1 and don't be in round 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, I probably cooked the worst I have ever cooked in that kitchen in that first round.
Why?
I put too much pressure on myself. I was like, I cooked in a way that wasn't the best for me to cook in. And it was like, do everything perfectly and make sure this is amazing. And that wasn't me. And then I was kind of like, what was that? Like, I had an hour over lunch to kind of think about what went wrong. And I was like, that's not how you are good. That's not how you're successful. Do what you do, have a laugh, enjoy the moment. And the next cook was like, I was cracking jokes with Marco and just really enjoyed myself. And it was a double elimination. So there was 3 in the second round. 2 of them go home. 1 gets into the top 10. We fly to Italy the next day. So I didn't know that, but Marco was just like, Matt, John and Gary left it to Marco. They said, you choose who you want to stay. And my dish was good. Like, I'm not going to lie, but it wasn't like, it wasn't an absolute no-brainer. And he was like, I think Andy shows the most potential here. Like, I think he should stay. And it just taught me that lesson, that just find a spot in your mind. And it's different for all of you, but find a spot where you are successful and you are cooking the best food ever. And you won't be able to find that spot every cook because it's, there's a lot that happens. But I found my spot. Yeah.
That's really interesting. Did you say thank you to Marco Pierre White?
Yes. Yeah. I was actually, because the next time I saw him, he was a judge on the season where I was a judge.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I was worried that he wouldn't even remember that.
Yeah.
And I brought it up to him, and Marco talks in riddles at the best of times. So, I think he appreciated it.
Seriously, the whole trajectory of your life completely changed because he asked for you to stay.
Yeah, definitely.
You owe it to that guy.
Definitely, yeah. That's not a good person to own the internet, okay? But I'll say it, yeah.
In 2023, Jock passed away. How was navigating the grief that went with that so publicly as well as privately?
It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. I've been really lucky not to have anyone close to me pass away. You know, like I've had grandparents and all that kind of stuff. You know, but they had good innings, and whereas like Jock and I, as soon as we walked into that kitchen, we were just inseparable. He was like the older brother that I never had, and I learnt so much from him. Like, you know, about obviously cooking, about food. But then like I saw him with his family and his young kids and Loz, and I was like, wow, like he's really great at just being present when he's with them. And I just learnt tons. And so for him to pass away, it was shocking. That's my birthday, the 30th of April.
Was it your birthday?
Yeah, that's my birthday. B, like I was with him the day before. I was the last person to see him. Like I had lunch, and then C, like for it to like just play out in the public eye. It was crazy. Like the first 24 hours was something that I would never want to relive in my life. I remember Loz calling me from Rome because the last bit of publicity that Jock had to do was on the launch day, which was on the 2nd of May or the 1st of May. And then Jock was on a plane to go and live in Rome for 6 months with the kids. This was their dream, to set up 6 in Australia, 6 in Rome, family there, have a great time, do work over there. But they'd been working on that for such a long time. And I get a call at about 4:30 in the morning from Lauren in hysterics, and you know, it's telling me what had happened, that Jock had passed away. And I was then like, and I suppose this is my coping mechanism, but I was then, okay, what do you need? And she was like, well, I just don't know what to do because he's got a lot of press to do this morning. And I had a bit of press to do as well. And I was like, okay, I'll go do his press. And because she didn't want to go to 10, this has happened. Like she needed to kind of get a plan together,
and deal with her
emotions.
and
deal with it.
And then you have to go, and also you're one of his best friends, so then you have to do press.
That must
have been so hard for you.
That was the hardest thing, and like it's crazy how it all works, because I remember so many ways. I was living in Carlton at the time. There's so many ways to get from Carlton to here. It was actually here in this this building that I had to come to do the press. And of all ways, the driver took me past the hotel that Jock had passed away in. And I was like talk about just getting like being rattled again. I was trying so hard just to kind of, you know, get in the zone and get done what I needed to do. And then did this press for like till 9 o'clock, and obviously hadn't told anyone, and then it all, like, that was like step one, get that done, then start the grieving process. And for me, the grieving process has been such a journey. Like it's something that I just had to navigate with my, you know, the people that are around me. But for the first 6 months, I really just tried to be there for other people. And I don't think everyone was like, you know, you're doing such a great job. You're doing such a great job. You know, I always wanted to be there for Loz and the family and do whatever I needed to do. But I think like that prolonged my grieving process. I remember being away in Europe with my wife, and there was like 3 things that happened in a very short space of time. I think it was Jock's birthday. I think we might have won another Logie or something. And then there was like 3 really like big things that had happened, and I just lost it. Like I just broke down. And I think from then on, I wasn't okay. Like I realized I wasn't a great husband. I wasn't good to the people that are around me. And I just think it was because of that first period of just like looking out for everyone else, making sure that they're okay. I realised that I hadn't really grieved myself. And then it was like, yeah, I needed to work on myself because I wasn't an amazing person.
How did you work on yourself?
I went to therapy, which was great. Like I'd kind of dabbled in it for years.
Like
but
talk therapy?
Yeah. Went to talk therapy, and I think I was just very aware that the grief is okay. And
that's what happens. You know, there's that beautiful saying that grief is love turned inward because the person's not there for you to give it to anymore. Yeah.
And I think for me, I still miss Jock every day, but I've learnt so much more to celebrate, and sure, there's days where I have really bad days.
But life is short.
But yeah, life is short, and they had a life, and they were so amazing at that life, and I want to celebrate that, and that's what should be happening. And yeah, the whole thing about grief is I could walk out of here tomorrow and just have that wave that comes over, which I've felt many a times, and just been struck down and have a cry and get it out of my system. But yeah, I think celebrating is kind of where I'm at the moment.
It's an interesting thing when we really think about the idea that no day of our life will ever come again. And I think sometimes when illness strikes or when we lose someone we love, it is the biggest reality check about that.
Yep.
Right? And I suppose we hope that it teaches us to not sweat the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so important to live each day almost, again, that quote that it is, if it is your last, you just never know.
And I think that's like some of the hard thing to do with the success, because I lead a pretty busy life. And sometimes you forget to do that, because there's always something you can be doing.
Yeah.
With restaurants, with everything that's happening in my career, like there's always something on. But I just want to, and I don't do this perfectly. I'm not that. I just want to learn how to take the moments and just and speak what I'm feeling a little bit more as well, in terms of the positive things that I'm feeling, and just take the moments with the people that are closest to me.
I read something really beautiful that shows the beautiful character that you have, that Jock's daughter Ava asked you to stand next to her when she was doing the eulogy.
Yeah.
And she's so little. And I mean, to think that you were asked, which means that she must have felt so comfortable around you. It's so sad but so beautiful. Yeah,
I'm really proud that I'm just really proud that I obviously had that impact in other people's lives, and I wish that I hope that I can continue to have impact on people's lives that are close to me. But Jock's funeral, that was again another tough one, but I'm proud of the part that I could play for Loz to go stand next to Ava. If she needs you to take over, and the absolute legend crushed it. Like, she didn't need me at all.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I just held her, and that was it. But yeah, that was I don't know. I'm not great at seeing the good that I do, and it's probably something that I can need to continue working on. But and just I know, and it's only because Loz has told me how much of a positive impact I've made on their kids' lives. And that feels really special. Really special.
Do you still see a lot of them now?
Yeah, I should do it more. They've moved to Sydney.
Oh, okay.
So it's made it a little bit harder, but yeah, like I catch up. I don't see Ava a lot now because she's moved to London for a career, but yeah, Alfie and I are just the best every time. It's so amazing that they're I can see them growing up, and I can see, our relationship, and it was something that will be there forever. And FaceTimes and meeting them and seeing them, and I'm just so happy and in awe of how Lauren's handled the whole situation.
Absolutely. I wonder, do you have daily habits or anything you do to keep your mental health in check that you use just generally?
No, I need to exercise. I know that when I go downhill, it's because like right now, I'm not lying. Right now, I haven't been able to exercise for like 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah.
God, that must make you feel like if I didn't exercise for 2 months, feel a bit like, oh.
I feel filthy. Yeah.
Yes.
And
bit of a schlump.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll be tomorrow that I do it because the schedule's been pretty gnarly.
Yeah. What time do you get up in the morning?
About 5:30 to 6:30. Yeah, and try and punch it out anywhere in there. But that's probably the only thing that I know that I can do in terms of like what works and that I can just see a direct relationship between my mental health.
Yes.
Is exercise.
What sort of stuff do you do?
I run. I go to the gym.
Yeah.
I keep it pretty chilled.
So how do you? You don't exercise. You're eating so much.
Yeah.
Like that must be.
Hang on. You can't say I don't exercise.
You're
for
on
the
your
4
feet all
months
day.
for the 4 months that we were filming prior to that, I was doing it like a boss. Okay. But yeah, it is hard with eating a lot of food.
Yeah. But you must be standing a lot as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing about...
That's actually quite hard.
Yeah.
Like I even look at a hairdresser and I think, I don't know how you stand all day.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing. Not the hard thing. It's the best thing about being a judge on the show. Like you get in there, you go straight into you go straight into hair and makeup. We have a briefing, then we start. And being a judge, you're a part of pretty much every touch point throughout the day. The intro. Then there's the cook where you're constantly going around monitoring what's going on, seeing what's happening. Then we break for lunch and then we come back. We try all the dishes, which you have to be super on for. Then you go out the back and you have the deliberation and then you deliver who's good and who's not so good. It's like, it's a lot, in a 12 to 14 hour day. But again, it's kind of because people are like, oh, there must be a lot of doing nothing. I'm like, no,
yeah,
actually
it's
not.
busy.
Yeah, there's a bit on. Yeah, and I think for the contestants, yes, because while you're tasting the other 23 dishes, you're just kind of standing there. The contestants are standing there waiting and being patient, but it's pretty full on.
And I wonder for you, do you think that it sounds like it is kids is something that you would think about doing in the near future?
Yeah. I
How old are you now?
37.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife's 34. Definitely. For me, I have a fear of like just not having enough time. And I know that
with the kids?
Yeah. I don't want to be a poor dad. I don't want to be a poor husband. And I know it's like, I'm sure that everyone probably goes through this, even if they just work 9 to 5. But I just want to be present and do that job the best that I possibly can.
Beautiful.
And I just don't know, right? I would have to make some solid changes, which I'm open for, but I just need to find out the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, what is some of the best advice that you have ever been given?
Oh, I think early on, like from my parents, like even, treat people how you want to be treated was like the one, like there's a few that I can still rattle off. Like that's definitely
kind of the law of reciprocity.
Yeah, that's definitely lasted with me. And that will never go away. If you're going to do a job properly. I just can just hear my old man just ringing that in the back of my head.
Are you Italian or Greek background?
No, like
you
Irish.
You said nonna before, so I thought maybe you were.
No, Irish and Scottish.
Okay.
And then, and I think that kind of was like multiplied when I started playing sport and there was discipline and all that kind of stuff. And then just take every opportunity as a learning opportunity. I'd love that. And I really do find myself coming back to that so often. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that are a lot better than me doing a lot of different things, and I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by a lot of those people. So there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to take in, and if you can just pick up a few of those nuggets, and you're in a good spot.
Is there I wonder, what is something that you wish for yourself?
Oh, that family piece, yeah, and just to be a good dad. Yeah,
I think you'll be amazing, Dad.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not perfect. Like, I have my moments.
Yeah.
But and there's still definite things that I need to work on, to be a better version of myself. But
I think always we're working on ourselves.
yeah, for sure. And I don't ever want to get to a stage where I think I've nailed it, guys. Like, that would be disgusting. So yeah, I think I just want to have that moment where I can sit back and go, because honestly, I work so hard right now to help give that family picture, to make it a really nice picture. And that's not a privileged picture. That's just
setting yourself up.
Exactly. That's just to like
smart.
Yeah, that's just to make things a little bit easier for my wife. And I just, I had an amazing childhood, and I would wish my childhood on a lot of people. But it wasn't like, it wasn't because we had fancy cars and a fancy boat. It was because of what my parents instilled in me. Yeah.
As well.
So yeah, I just want to have that moment where I just go, this is why you did it. This is why you've done all of the things that you've done over the last 15 years. And just have that really solid relationship with my wife and my kids. Yeah.
And our final question, what is a life of greatness to you?
Happiness. Don't you think? Like, I think a life of greatness, it doesn't matter what you're good at. If you're not happy, like, what are you doing it for? It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm not like, I don't love every day that I get out of bed. I don't love, like,
no one does.
No one does. But I think a life of greatness, happiness needs to be number one, because like you say, it can be short. And so, I even question myself asking with that last question about that picture, that's something for the future, and I may not even get to the future, so why isn't the thing that I want, why isn't it for tomorrow, or why isn't it for this afternoon? So I think, and my wife's probably listening to this going, you can be a lot happier sometimes, honey. And I know that I should, but it's for me to try and pursue that happiness a lot more.
Andy Allen, thank you for being such a wholesome character in the Australian landscape of entertainers, and even being reflective and constantly working on yourself. And I just think, as I said to you earlier, there's a whole range of different people that people look up to, and to have you and everything you've done, and the restaurants and MasterChef, it's really inspiring for a lot of people. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for the conversation today.
Thank you, Sarah. That was like a beautiful therapy session. So I feel so good walking out of this studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.